Hi, and welcome to the Leader's Edge. Today marks the start of season 4, and Georgia and I wanted to celebrate our progress with the launch of our new Leader's Edge brand and logo. And you can check out our mugs and polos, which have been so rebranded by Brandit. For custom branding, find them on social media, just Brandit TT, or email them at info@justbranded.com. And we'll leave that in the comments for you. So big thanks to Richard and the team at Branded, and cheers to us for season 4. Last but no means least, big thanks to our audience and to our wonderful guests. All right. So today, our topic is the certainty of uncertainty. And this is not a misnomer. You heard us right. Before we dive in, let us do our awareness piece. I'd like you to think about how you typically react to uncertainty on a scale of 1 to 10. Are you the kind of person who gets easily frustrated and stuck when it feels difficult to reliably predict or know outcomes? Or are you the kind of person who feels okay to go with the flow of things and can easily pivot and adjust? Take a second, pick a number from 1 to 10, no judgment, on how you react to uncertainty. And with that awareness, I'll invite Georgia to introduce our lovely guest, Mariano Browne.
Good morning. Thank you, Emily. It is Monday morning, and we are here at the start of our season 4. And we have our guest. And I see the movie. The movie is called Everybody Knows Mariano. Mariano, you seen that movie?
No, I didn't see that.
Mariano, he has a mind as sharp as a razor. If you are a guest on a TV trivia show and you have the option to phone a friend, phone Mariano because he's going to give you the answers. I call Mariano Sir Mariano because of the service that he has given to both the public and the private sectors. And I think that's worthy of knighthood. He is chartered accountant, so it's from chartered accountant to economist to senator, minister of government, newspaper columnist, and CEO of the UA Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business. That's Mariano Browne. So, Mariano, as the opening batsman for season 4, let's hear you walk us through now on your thoughts on the topic, the certainty of uncertainty. What does that really mean in practical terms for business leaders navigating today's complex world?
Well, all right. I think one word that you use there is something that I'd like to go to. You talk about complex, and there's a difference between complicated and complex. A car is a complicated instrument or a complicated artifact that we use. It has about 22,000 moving parts. An aeroplane carries a whole different level of complications because it has more than 100,000 moving parts. And some of them are software driven, as we've seen, for example, from some of the difficulties. A new plane came out, won't call any names here, but assume that it's called the 737. It has the same body that it has had since 1967. That hasn't changed. But the size of the engines have changed. And they were attempting to fix it because the heavier the engine, the same body, then it has certain propensity to move towards gravity, which is down. And they had to use software to be able to fix it, except that the software didn't always work in the fashion, or they hadn't trained the pilots correctly. And as a result of which, we had a series of crashes. That's a complicated system. Eventually, they found out what was wrong and they could fix it because there are, in those words, dependent variables. You can identify what went wrong. There's a history, there's the whole reason for the black box and everything else. We can find out what went wrong. Now, life is complex, meaning that it is difficult. Did I freeze just now?
No, we're hearing you.
Okay, good. You hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. It means that life is complex, meaning that the variables are independent. And when you do to fix in this particular, it does not necessarily have the same result that you're expecting. And that's what makes it difficult. And that's what makes uncertainty problematic. So the one thing that we know is that we will always face change. So we have the example of Mr. Trump. Whilst
Yes.
we, whilst we thought that we knew him from before and we knew he was a mercurial character, what has happened since he's come in? He's literally upended the world order.
Yeah.
And the world order, in the sense that we knew it with regard to trade, and that America, for example, the basic formulation since 1947 has been the most favored nation status.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a whole set of trade treaties done on that basis. We even developed an international system to bring people into the loop on the basis of reducing tariff and making trade a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Along comes Mr. Trump and decides to upend the whole thing, throw all the treaties in the dustbin, and literally put everybody on notice. And he isn't doing it through the norm of what we would call negotiated treaties. The
Right.
negotiated treaties take time to happen. They are done by what one would call serious technicians who spend a lot of time going through these things. And this
Mhm.
playbook, unfortunately, doesn't follow that way. So we're looking at memorandum of understandings, right, which put in tariffs at will, literally.
Yes.
So
It's unilateral. Yeah.
that is also coming in the context of what we are now looking at is what is a multipolar world, right? For
Mm-hmm.
25 years, there's only one dominant hegemon, and that dominant hegemon is the US. Now it's
Right.
coming at a stage where there's pushback. There certainly is pushback from China, which has moved, if you will, from third world status to first world
Mm-hmm.
status
Yeah.
in 30 years. And then there's Russia, which went through its own trials and tribulations in the 1990s and is now prepared to tell NATO, that's it. We're not
Mm-hmm.
moving back any further.
Yeah.
So this is a different type of situation.
Yes,
And
that landscape has changed.
its landscape has changed completely. And it's in our Caribbean backwater as well.
Yep.
Insofar as you have the US, for example, at the moment attempting to instill its power on Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of Trinidad and Tobago, well, we are 7 miles away, so this is right on our doorstep,
Oh,
and this
yes.
has implications, wider implications. A simple thing like whether fishermen go to sea. The fact that it's 7 miles away, we
Yeah.
don't know what will happen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
one boat was blown out of the water, allegedly containing drug traffickers. Well, the penalty for drug trafficking is jail, incarceration, not death.
Not death.
So
Yeah.
fishermen in those circumstances will err on the side of caution, particularly those who may have been running drugs between Venezuela and Trinidad. So
Yes.
Yes.
So,
that's a
Marianne,
this is a completely different situation. Things have changed.
yeah, things have definitely changed. And I think one of the things we were saying when we spoke as we were leading up to this was that the fact is that change is this kind of even war, the threat of war, and this
Mhm.
kind of change, while it feels so foreign to us right now, because we've been so accustomed in the Caribbean to not have to worry about we're stable. We don't have
So,
incursions and threats of war. That's in other parts of the world, not locally, not here in this region. So I remember, you giving us a little history lesson to say that, yeah,
Yes.
but this is normal actually. So
not too strange.
how about linking what we're seeing now with all of these major, these very major differences that we're not accustomed to, but talking about that in the context of, if we take a bigger look back at history and
Yes. Well,
what,
yeah, I take your point, and
yeah,
I was going to get to that.
yes,
I was just laying the groundwork.
I
And the
got
point
you.
is, our memories and are related to our near-term history.
Yeah.
So most of us remember independence and the period just before independence. I mean, your memory is as good as your grandfather. And if you haven't had one, then you don't know what went before you. You have to depend on what people write about. But if
Mhm.
you understand a little bit about the history of the Caribbean, the Caribbean has always been in turmoil. And it has been in turmoil since 1492.
Mm.
Right? They had a set of people who were living here, and we were discovered. As much of the Americas was, they were discovered. Right?
Yeah.
The world centered around Europe and Asia. So Columbus' voyages of discovery took place after there was, if you want, the joining of Spain became a national entity. Until 1492, it wasn't. Until 1491, it wasn't. And in fact, it was dominated by another form of colonial government, the Moors.
Mm.
So Spain became an entity in 1492 and they came out to the Caribbean. And this is around the same time that a whole set of nation states are being born. This is Germany didn't become a nation state until 1870, meaning that it was unified under Bismarck. Italy wasn't unified until somewhere around just before the First World War. Um, it was a series of city states, right? France was unified somewhere around the 13th or 14th century. England still has problems. That's why they talk about devolution. Right?
Mm.
Uh-huh.
It came together as Great Britain and now it's breaking up as Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. And all of those fights which took place in Europe took place in the Caribbean's backwater, starting with 1492. Spain came, and then everybody else came. So the Caribbean was a zone of warfare, literally from 1500 until 1815. And then
Yeah.
we come with a relative period of relative peace because Europe is at peace. And of course, until the next World War, which happens in 1914, where we are on the edge once again. The Atlantic is the theater of war, and
Mm.
we are in the Caribbean, we are on the Atlantic. And then comes the Second World War, and we have a series of American bases effectively carrying the fight to the enemy. Trinidad didn't have one base, it had 17. Right? It had at least two runways. The center of military traffic and what actually took place here, the fight against the U-bait war. This is one of the places. Barbados is another one, right? Jamaica too. Less so, but Jamaica too. So we
Mm-hmm.
had, if you want, war on our doorsteps all the time. But the point is, our memory can only goes back about 63 years. So we remember
Yes.
independence and what else has taken place. So
Yeah.
that literally from 1940s onwards, and that's what our constructive memory is about. Our constructive memory is about building society. The point is,
Mm-hmm.
West Indian society has been under construction since 1492. And the way
Yeah.
it's been constructed is by a series of waves of immigration under one colonial power or another. And the type of social systems that develop. And at the time, most people have forgotten that we think of ourselves as poor developing countries. There was a time when we were rich and considered
Mm.
to be rich, but that richness was built, or that wealth didn't take place in the Caribbean. It took place in the metropolitan countries. That's Eric Williams' thesis. That
Right.
Mm-hmm.
wealth that was derived from slavery and from sugar um, fueled and financed the Industrial Revolution in England. He's not wrong in that. In fact, the more and more we look at it, the stronger the thesis becomes. And what we also have to remember as a result, looking backwards now, looking at ourselves, we are in the process of becoming, we have all different types of gradations of color in our societies that you don't find elsewhere,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
mixes, right? So that you will find that that if you want is actually one certainty that we have from a social perspective,
Yeah.
right? And even that is not a certainty because what it says is that it's evolving, it's changing,
It is.
and
It
it makes
is.
a difference in terms of your workplace, and it also creates perhaps issues that are not captured in anybody's textbook. What North
Mm-hmm.
Americans talk about is diversity, but we don't have to talk about it from diversity. We live it,
We live
Yes,
it.
we
right?
We
do.
live it.
We live it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that really and truly, in terms of operating in a business context, whom we are appealing, and we are small societies. We're not big societies. There's a lot more space, not in small societies. And in
Right.
small societies, you feel it much more quickly. You see it. It's evidence.
It's right in front of your
Even
face.
our politics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that the one central theme about Caribbean society, really, and certainly over the last 60 years, or independence came 63 years ago um,
Mm-hmm.
to Jamaica and Trinidad, and then followed
Mm-hmm.
literally in domino effect all through the region, is that we've been building societies and we've been concentrated on the economics, but there's also an underlying, if you will, social dynamic, which also affects what has taken place.
Yeah.
So there
Right.
is what we've added to it now is the complexity of the international environment. The issue, the economics that has been, well, the economic thought that we've developed was developed to help developing countries, but not small developing countries. Even if the foremost, if you want, thought leader in terms of developing economics came from the Caribbean, Sir Arthur Lewis. And the Sir Arthur Lewis model has been used everywhere. They've used it differently in the in the Far East in particular. The Asian tigers all use the same model that was written by Sir Arthur Lewis, but the difference is size.
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 Yes.
It makes a
Size
huge
changes
difference.
everything.
So that they
Yes.
were able, some countries were able to leapfrog and to do different things. We haven't. Now, Singapore's strength also comes from the fact, what we know about Singapore, it's a transshipment, uh, literally a shipping center. Transshipment is a very big part.
Yeah.
Singapore is
Very little natural resource too, right?
no natural resources. The only
Yes.
natural resource they have is people.
Yes.
And you focused on the development of people from an educational point of view. It was rigorous. They didn't wait in terms of borrowing somebody else's system, somebody else's O level, A levels. Say we'll use that as a base. But what we will do is we will develop standards and we will measure continuously for those standards to be improved. And they did. And they also they managed state enterprises in a way that was completely different to the way we manage them. They were funds of all state enterprises essentially are sponsored by the state. In the case of Singapore, their state enterprises are private sector driven. Right? You reward people on the basis of performance. They don't
Ah,
perform,
okay.
they
Right.
just work.
Good.
So
So
that
that was an
their Heritage and Stabilization Fund is not how much money you have, it's how strong my state enterprises are.
Okay.
Huge
So
difference.
Mariano, let's come back to the Caribbean. So if we're saying that uncertainty is one sure thing, what have you been seeing in Caribbean leadership in companies in how leaders are managing unpredictability? What
Well,
mistakes are they been making? Have they been making?
we've had very good responses from some of our leaders, but they're not well
Mm-hmm.
known. All right. And one of the difficulties in terms of their success is that their success is sometimes, when they say if you have a bird, let it go, and if it comes back, it's yours.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some of those birds are flying
Okay.
because they're outgrowing the size of the domestic market. They're becoming, if you want, middle-level brands that are becoming internationally known. So if,
Yes.
for example, we take in the case of Jamaica and we take Butch Stewart. Butch Stewart started off, just like everybody else, manufacturing behind a tariff wall, appliances. And they moved
Right.
to a more open system. Well, that wouldn't work. We couldn't compete against the new kids on the block, Malaysia, Indonesia, and then latterly China. And they shifted. And they shifted into an area in which there was a definitive strength, natural resource, the sun, sea, and sand. And there was a type of hotel tourism that was unique, all inclusive. Up until that time, we knew about the European plan and we knew about the modified American plan. European plan meaning you get bed and breakfast.
Yes.
Modified American plan meaning you get breakfast and dinner. You are out on the road and see about lunch. Along comes Butch and they decide, well, hang on a second, we could do something else. Right? Because of the crime in Jamaica, we don't necessarily want these people moving all over the place. Let's keep them on site and let's find a way to do it. Let's make it affordable. And they keep for the all-inclusive concept. Right? You can get anything.
Right.
One price, they give you price certainty. So they created a model which was useful for the Jamaican context and the Jamaican situation with regard to crime. And then
Right.
the model bought it, and the question was, could we do this somewhere else? And where else we could do it? Well, let's try in the Caribbean first. But then perhaps we could do it even further afield. And then the model becomes a little bit more nuanced in terms of where is the money being collected and where's the head office. So it now becomes a question of tax avoidance, which is what all companies, when they get larger, that's what takes place. We try to become more efficient. We try to squeeze the orange so we could get some more juice out of it. Now he's not the only one. In the Caribbean, we also have, in the case of Barbados, you have Kiffin Simpson. Most people know of Kiffin Simpson as Simpson's Motors. He sells Suzuki. Right? What people don't know is that Kiffin Simpson, why he started off selling low-level brands, because Suzuki is not known internationally as being a top brand. It's a middle or lower brand. He found a way to do it in the Caribbean, and everybody thought that, well, Suzuki has all these branches all over the region and so on. Well, what happened was there was one principal agent. His name was Kiffin Simpson, and he sold Suzukis to everybody in the region, and he was confident
Wow.
that the Suzuki family gave him the franchise for parts of Latin America.
Okay.
When I met Mr. Simpson, he wasn't selling 30 cars a day in the Caribbean or 50 cars a day. He was selling 1,000 cars in Brazil a day.
Okay. Okay.
Completely different.
So
Now,
scale is important in time of uncertainty. Is that one of the things I'm getting?
the models, you change your model, and your
Yes.
model has to be adaptive. Now, he
Right.
didn't go and tell everybody. I mean, what was the major complaint you hear from politicians about Caribbean businessmen? That they are retail and distributive. They're only in the retail and distributive sector. They could import. Everybody could import.
Right.
Well, if you take Kiffin Simpson as a good example of that, yes, he was a good importer. And yes, what he did is translated into an international business model. He was selling cars from Barbados using the offshore sector, which was designed to bring all these multinationals in position. Well, he inverted it. He became a multinational behind the offshore window. Right?
Wow.
Whatever benefits that the foreign companies got, he got too. Right now, there's a huge difference from me paying 50% tax in the domestic market and me paying 5% tax on each dollar that I report as profit. 5% tax, I have 45 cents extra to do. That
Yeah.
means tremendous pool of savings.
Okay.
You are literally 10 times better off than the next man that is operating. And if you're 10 times better off and you're operating in a wider market, because that's what the offshore sector, that's what operating behind the offshore window did, he became an international businessman.
Yeah.
So
People think
these visionaries saw that.
correct. People
Yeah.
think he
So,
was a businessman in Barbados. No. He was an international businessman. He was
yeah.
using the same model, but he was using it wherever he could go. He started off in Latin America, and most people don't know. He also owns or owned, I think he sold it recently, the largest dealership, BMW dealership in China.
Oh, wow.
There you
Right?
go.
Now,
Yeah.
this is a businessman operating from the Caribbean, and we think about him, but he's a Barbadian. He started off what he started off life doing, packing supermarket shelves. Right. So the issue is that he looked at the environment, right, and he came up with a model which was different, which was useful, and he inverted the Caribbean context. The Caribbean context is about how much do we import, right?
Mhm.
Hang on, I can do this differently. Did he come up with the idea immediately? No,
Okay.
right? It
I'm
took
sure there
time.
were many iterations. Yeah.
It took time. He
Yeah.
became very successful in the region in terms of selling cars, and an opportunity came. Opportunities come dressed in working clothes. Imagine a Japanese family coming to a Asian businessman. I mean, there's 120 million people across there, 370,000 people in Barbados. Well, what could one person in 370,000 people, in 270,000 people know that one in the other 120 million wouldn't?
Yeah.
And the idea was that he was successful as a salesman. He
Ah,
could sell, right? So was Butch Stewart. Butch Stewart was a salesman.
salesman, yes. So they have that in common.
They have that in
Maybe
common,
that's a study for us to do.
right? So the idea is that he inverted a business principle in the same way that that Butch inverted a principle. In the case of Trinidad and Tobago, you have the Bermudez Group, and you have the Lockjack, you have SM Jalil. Again, one company is multi-generational, all right? That's the SM Jalil. It's about the fourth or fifth generation running the company. Started off small, right? And they grew in the middle of adversity. When the market crashed in Trinidad and we went into depression, they changed their whole bottling context and their marketing context, and they took on the big distributors. But they didn't take on the big distributors directly. They took them on by basically addressing the smaller businesses, all the SMEs that we talk about,
Mhm.
because it became a matter of price. This became a price market, right? So they shifted from glass to plastic, right?
Mhm.
Which was different in the market, and it changed the size of the drinks.
Chubby. Mhm.
Yes.
And
And
all of a
chubby.
sudden, give them a market, and they also changed the distribution methodology. What was the distribution methodology? Everybody used to use these big trucks, right? So you're
Mhm.
delivering large trucks delivering to multi-purposes. And they moving from, if you want, 15 and 20-ton vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
basically centered and distributed in between 1 to 3 ton trucks. That
Mm-hmm.
means you get to places which are smaller, right, in the countryside and in the Port of Spain areas, in the alleys and the valleys,
Right.
right? And that changed the distribution model. And the drinks that I was carrying were also lighter.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Because of the
So
glass. Less
the,
glass. Yeah.
the
Yes.
model made them, they made a market for themselves here, but quickly understood as well, having captured a particular percentage of the local market. If you have 50% of 101.5 million people, well, what is your growth prospects? Well, how do I grow? Well,
Right. Of
Yeah.
course.
there's a limit to growth. So you have to export. What is the model that I would
Oh.
use to export? Do I export water? Alternatively, do I bottle somewhere else under license?
Mhm.
Which is the model that they chose. And the
Mm-hmm.
point is not you will find chubby across Latin America, across all the areas where we have diaspora. In the case of North America, you'll find them in Canada, you'll find them in South Africa, and they're now looking at the Middle East, right? Because there's an ethnic positioning where that is concerned. They're Muslim.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a different thought process which moved them around. If you compare that on the other side, the Bermudez family, multi-generational too, but less number generation, probably two generations.
Okay.
Compare that with Arthur Lockjack, one generation, first generation. He starts his business in 1974, behind the tariff hall manufacturing, but he also understood immediately that market too small, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me to survive, right? And what was he selling? He was selling little packs of snacks to children. That's
Yeah.
what his business is about, to children, right? So when you sell it to children, you don't sell for a big amount. You sell for a
No.
small amount, small
Right.
packets. So you have to be very tight in terms of your accounting, in terms of your
Mhm.
manufacturing, and you have
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to manufacture to meet at that particular level.
Yeah.
And
So,
took the opportunity
Mariano, as
and
as
started.
we yes, as we bring this to a close, we recognize that change is always going to be with us. But how can we be in front of the change? Because that's what we're seeing with some of the of the visionaries that you've been talking about.
Well, the first one is to persevere.
Mm-hmm.
Right now,
Mhm.
the thing about it is all of those that I mentioned, they all know one another. They're all friendly. Life is
Ah,
very small at the top, right? And they talk to one another. So
yes.
there's an important part in terms of the social aspect, in terms of communication, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because to get into my market, I have to be friendly with somebody else on the other side. Somebody has to open a door for me. So it doesn't move away from the whole concept of communication,
Yes.
or alternatively following business leads, and that's interpersonal.
Yes.
There's also that aspect. It doesn't not just come up with an idea and because
Same
I take
relationships.
over the market. You
Mhm.
have to do
Yes, Emily, that's it. Building the relationships.
you have to build relationships. Now that is a key point in terms of us moving forward. But the key point about the if you want the uncertainty remains. They will all be affected by everything else that is taking place. So they
Yeah.
have to adapt their business model.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everyone has to adapt their business model. The issue is how do I adapt? But the
Right.
point is that you have to be at a particular size and have sufficient resources to allow you to adapt in those situations
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
adaptation means a different level of investment.
Yeah.
So the challenges are going to
It's a
be
little.
there.
Go ahead.
So the challenges are going to be there, but most importantly is how I react to them. Right?
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
look at the key things in all of them, is nobody said I can't do it. He said let's look
Yes.
at a
That is
different way
key.
to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like, I think this was a bit of a history lesson going back in terms of recognizing that, yeah, uncertainty never goes away. So if we're waiting on the uncertainty to settle in order to
Mhm.
do something, we're never going to do anything.
Yes.
So
And this
that's one.
the other point that follows from that is that the importance of independence is this:
Mm,
you have to do it yourself.
Ah,
You can't wait on anybody else to do it for you.
and a
You
yeah.
can't
savior to
wait
come.
for someone to do it for you. Right? The government has, you have to tell the government what you want to do and get them to help you,
Right.
Yes.
not
That's a
the
key
other way
Provide the
point.
around.
ideas.
That's a key
Yes.
point.
Provide the ideas. Provide the impetus. Be
Mhm.
proactive. You know, we say proactive and it sounds like again, like a stuck record, but yeah, really think about what you need and go for it. And I think, Mariano, you made the point that we are different. So all the North American texts and all the different gurus out there, we have to stop
Mhm.
looking for the gurus out there and also just become the gurus in here.
Yes.
What works for us. And there are
Find the
lots of
guru within.
examples.
That's an important point. That's a critical point because the modalities of business, the key principles of business, you're always going to have to market. You have to you have to produce. You have to manage your finances. You have to manage AR. All right. You have to manage IT. You have to manage your working capital. It's like all as a given, right?
Yeah.
But we are not multinationals, and sometimes the big, well, the big MBA firms who are they sponsored by, right? In the case of MIT, with which I'm very familiar, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's sponsored by General Motors,
Ah,
right?
Mm-hmm.
okay.
So their methodologies, their thinking tends to be on large multinational lines, which is
Mm-hmm.
and we are not operating, we're not multinationals, we're small. So it's a
Yes.
question of how do we convert our small companies that become sufficiently agile that they can grow outwards and upwards.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. And
Wow.
there's a lot of and there are examples that we can use and follow
Yes,
and build on.
yes.
And I think that's if anybody's looking on, that's the takeaway. So, there's certainty that there will always be uncertainty. The idea is, are you a possibility thinker? Are
Yeah.
you putting your mind to think of how you can versus we can't because of A, B, C, D, E? And then trying to figure out how to manage the resources that you do have and maximize on what you can in order to find those opportunities that are there. They
Mhm.
are there if we look
And,
for them,
and we have
Yes.
to,
right?
and our societies also to have to praise, right?
Mm,
We have to praise successes and we have to find successes.
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm.
We tend to view wealth with suspicion.
Mm.
Right? And that's partly because of our historical background. That's one certainty that you could talk about. We're
Yes.
suspicious of people who are more wealthy than us. Right?
Mm,
How did they
Yes.
do it? What did they do
Yes.
differently? Why could they do it and we didn't do it? Right?
Yes.
Rather than saying, um, I want to do it too, and I
Mm-hmm.
have to find a way to do it. Right? And
yes.
that unfortunately seeps into the way our governments respond to business. So it becomes less of a cooperative venture
Yes.
Yes.
and more one which is in a sense I'm jealous of you. I'm jealous
Yes.
of
It's combative sometimes.
the point is you are there to help me to be successful.
Right.
Right.
And we can all be successful as a result. We can
Correct.
Together.
build on,
Together.
success builds success. We employ
Mm.
more people, the whole
Mm-hmm.
system
That's
multiplies,
it.
right? Yeah.
Right. And we have to and to do that, I mean the Singapore example that I use is also important. You have to build your own systems.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right.
another key point. Yes.
Yeah.
Excellence has to be rewarded and it's built on excellence. It's
Mm-hmm.
nothing is going to come to you because you're bright.
Certainly not on a silver platter anymore. It's not coming.
Right? It's a question of how do you apply that native intelligence to the
Right.
problems that you face. Right? And you
Mm,
have to find ways to do it that would be different. Right? Most people don't know, for example, Shanghai is now probably one of the largest ports in the world and one of the best run ports in the world. But its system that it was created was built on a Singapore system and they started from scratch. And
Oh,
mm-hmm.
look at
this
that again.
and they sold it. They what you call it. They went it. Crimson Logic is a company. It's been
Yes.
there are about 4 or 5 articles in Harvard Business Review on Crimson Logic, but
Okay.
Crimson Logic is a Singapore state enterprise.
Yes. And lots of port systems now are built on Crimson Logic.
Correct, right? And where did that system originate? in Singapore.
Singapore. Yep.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes.
So,
Right.
Mariano, go ahead. So, what? Last point, and then we will wrap because we are way over time, but this has been such a good one.
Oh
So,
my goodness.
I'll leave it at that.
we'll leave it at
Point-
that.
yes,
This,
the
it
point
looks
is,
like a part 2 and a part 3 coming.
well,
Yeah.
as you notice, is I wasn't successful. They were. I'm just talking about how successful they were. Right? My logic has been, my role has been to, in a sense, that I'm an onlooker. I know Kiffin Simpson, I know Mr. Lockjack, I know the Judies, and I know Bermudez. Right? So in a sense, I've been party to that journey.
Yes.
Right? Not
Yes.
directly, but indirectly. And in the process, I've learned from them. Right?
Right.
Since Kiffin Simpson was my client, right? Arthur Lockjack was my client at one time as well. Small business, but small business window, and he was looking to export into a particular market. I work with them to help them, right?
Yeah. And I'm sure they've picked your brains.
Well, I'm not so certain about that. Right? But
There was an exchange.
right?
There was
Yes.
a fruitful exchange.
I'm happy I had the opportunity to look at it
Yeah. Yeah.
because,
And learn, as you say, from them. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the point is, it doesn't have to do with how much education you have.
You're right. That's another key point. Yes.
Arthur Lockjack tells his story, for example, that his favorite time in school was when he used to leave to go to cinema. Right? So whenever they had roll call and they asked for him, they say he's was visiting royalty today, which means he went to Royal Cinema.
I thought he was going to say recess was his favorite
No, no,
time.
no. But when he went into business and he saw an opportunity and he was motivated, that's the important point. You have to be
Mm-hmm.
motivated to do it
You have
because
to be.
it doesn't
Right.
come to you. He was
Yeah.
motivated to succeed. He wanted to succeed and he
Yes.
had to find a way to get it done. And he
Yeah.
trained himself. Importantly, he trained himself.
Yeah.
That's a key
Well,
point.
lots of lessons here for the leaders who are watching and listening to us, and those who are going to catch us on the replay. Marianne, you
Definitely.
learned from those visionaries, and we are learning from you.
Yes.
So, Emily, over to you to wrap.
Yes. So, Mariano, thank you so much for the time this morning, for giving us some ideas, some hope, inspiration. I think a lot of people feel down with what is going on in the world when they
Mhm.
look at it because it's so different, it feels challenging. However, from challenges come opportunity. And I
Mhm.
really want to thank you for showing us so many opportunities that have derived out of difficult circumstances, and that's the power, right, for the course that we're on. So thank you again, Mariano, for sharing your time, for sharing some lessons, for giving us that opportunity to pick your brains.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to the comments from the audience as they listen to this and take it in because there are so many nuggets, as Georgia said. Take
Yes.
care, everyone, and have a
Thank you.
great week. Thank you again.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.